I want to welcome everyone inside the TexAg studios. I'm Leah Musgrave, joined today by a very special guest, Herb Vincent, Associate Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. Herb, how's it going? Thanks so much for your time.
Good. Good to see you, and I hope everyone in your area of the country is safe and well.
We are trying our best. Herb, with everything that's been going on surrounding the coronavirus outbreak, what have things been like in the SEC offices in Birmingham? I can only imagine the chaos.
Well, like so many other people, we're working from home mostly. We have a stay-at-home order in Birmingham, Alabama, and so we're all working from home. Like so many others, we're doing a lot of Zoom calls and go-to meetings and every other kind of technology that you can use to stay in touch. And so most of the days are filled with conference calls and video meetings.
Well, we're glad you guys are staying safe. Herb, if you would just take me back to the beginning of all of this, because it's been a few weeks since the SEC called off all conference and non-conference competition through the remainder of the athletic year. With so much in this stream of information, when did you come to the conclusion that that decision was going to be made?
Well, if there was anything beneficial about the way it all played out, was that we were all at the SEC men's basketball tournament in Nashville, and during that time we always have an annual meeting of athletic directors at that meeting, and so we were actually in a meeting. We had a pretty robust agenda that day. On the agenda was the coronavirus, but also name, image, and likeness, and transfer issues, and a lot of other things facing college athletics right now. But very early on, we started to see information come in on our Twitter feeds about developments around the coronavirus and its impact on sports. And so we just kind of scrapped the agenda and talked right then. We had all the athletics directors from all the schools who were there. We actually had a meeting of the presidents and chancellors of the SEC scheduled for the very next day. So if there was anything fortunate about the timing, there's nothing fortunate about anything in this whole circumstance, but it was that we had all of our universities in one room and we're able to talk through decisions related first to the basketball tournament and then to sports in general. So it just kind of played out as more information came in, as the NCAA made decisions, and we were able to talk things through, and I think make the right decisions with the right people in the room at the time.
If I remember correctly, all of this kind of started with the Ivy League canceling their basketball tournament, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. And then those cancellations were being made all the way out to the College World Series. Were you surprised at those cancellations? And then were you given any kind of an explanation for why things were being canceled so many months in advance?
Well, I think at that time, I think everything was surprising us. Everything was surprising and everything was not surprising at the same time because you could see so many issues developing so fast. I think the right decisions were made along the way. Different groups had to make different decisions based on the information they had at the time, and I think ultimately everybody got to the right place. And so there's no script for this. It's a worldwide pandemic that we were all dealing with in very real time during the one of the most significant portions of the athletic schedule with March Madness coming up. And so most of us were in the middle of conference tournaments, facing the next week going to the NCAA tournament and March Madness. And so a lot of decisions were made in a very fast order. First, the Southeastern Conference made the decision to play the men's basketball tournament without fans in the arena. And so we reached that decision very late on Wednesday afternoon when we got information from the NCAA that they were going to do the same. And so we played Wednesday night with fans in the arena because they were already lined up at the doors, and with the intent to not play with fans in the arena beginning the next morning on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Even that evening, as Commissioner Sankey was going into a press conference to address the media about that decision, we got word about the NBA and that they had suspended their season at the time. And so that changed things a bit for our conversation. And we got into a meeting the next morning and talked about what's the best path forward, and ended up canceling the tournament and canceling athletic events through March 30th. And it was in the ensuing days that we reached the decision to cancel athletic events for the remainder of the spring season. And so that's where we arrive now. And so we're looking at the fall and still on plans for schedule for the fall. And we'll continue that way until circumstances dictate otherwise.
Well, I'd like to circle back to that a little bit later, but like you said, a lot of these decisions have been made so fast. And what has the SEC's approach been to handling these fast paced decisions, knowing that inevitably they're going to be affecting a very large number of people?
Well, all along, the strategy has been to follow public health advisories, and that was the most important thing. And everything that we have done has been in the interest of our student athletes and our fans, but on top of that, to stop the spread of the virus. And so we've followed public health advisories every step of the way. I believe other sports leagues have as well, and that's how we've reached the decisions that we have. There's a lot of communications between our league and other leagues, our level of sports and college sports, along with communicating with professional sports. So I think that's how those decisions have been made. We followed the advice of public health advisories, and we'll continue to do so going forward.
Herb, what was your reaction to the NCAA granting eligibility relief to spring sport athletes?
Well, we felt it was the right thing to do. We have a collection of student athletes, a class of student athletes who did not get to experience their senior year. And there's a lot of complications that come with that, to bringing those student athletes back next year and giving everyone an extra year of eligibility, because you do have an incoming class from high school coming in. But it was the right thing to do to offer that opportunity. And I think the NCAA built in some flexibilities for schools about how to apply it, uh, based on the best interests of that institution, because just the previous week, the NCAA had announced what their revenue distribution was going to be, down quite a bit from what it usually would have been, based on the fact the NCAA tournament could not be played. So that revenue distribution is going to affect different schools in different ways, different conferences in different ways. And the NCAA, in granting eligibility back to the student athletes, gave the schools flexibility to help manage some of that impact, that revenue impact, that they have to face in real terms.
Well, in addition to granting that eligibility relief, is there anything specific that you've seen from the SEC member institutions just in regards to providing their student athletes with care and nutrition and support during these times of uncertainty?
Well, we have daily conference calls with our athletics directors, and
Hmm.
they keep us up to date on what's going on their campuses. And to a school, every one of them have stayed in touch with their student athletes. They've offered them help. They're limited to how much actual contact they have with them naturally, because so many of the athletes have gone home, but they still can offer mental health care. They can offer support. They can offer a lot of the same support that they give them all during the course of the year, and they'll continue to do that as long as they can, based on the current circumstances. So I think our schools have done a great job. I think schools and other conferences have done a wonderful job keeping the student athlete at the top of our priorities as we move forward, because they face such uncertain futures right now,
Hmm.
and they've been entrusted to us for their college careers, and so we need to recognize that. And I think our schools have done a really good job of that.
I would love to circle back to your comments on football season. And I know this is important not just to the fans in the SEC, but because it generates so much revenue for the conference. And I have to ask, has there been any kind of a dialogue in regards to building a contingency plan for what could happen if football season is to be affected by this?
Well, as I said earlier, our focus has been on our student athletes, and so it's going to continue to be there. And our goal is to play football as scheduled in the fall. We know the realities of what's ahead of us, but we don't know the answers, and there aren't any answers right now. And we're not going to project and try to come up with answers that we don't have. We have to admit that we don't know right now. So we're following health advisories. We're watching closely the situation as it unfolds. But right now, we have to find out when student athletes can get back and train to prepare for their fall seasons, and that includes not only football but volleyball and cross country and soccer in the SEC. And there's other sports and other conferences in the same situation. So. Well, our focus is on the student athletes and being able to get them into a situation that they can begin to train and prepare for the seasons ahead.
No question. One last thing before I let you go, Herb. As we look around at everything that's been going on in the world, and as someone who's been around the SEC and college athletics for a long time, have you had an opportunity to just reflect on how the coronavirus outbreak might potentially impact the overall landscape of college athletics and the NCAA?
We hadn't had a lot of time to stop and think too much and project too far into the future.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of that is because we don't know what our short-term future is. We don't
Right.
know how long this pandemic is going to last, how it's going to impact us, including economically and socially. And so there's so much to be known before we get to the point we can really see long-term how it's going to impact us. I spend a lot of the time on conference calls dealing with issues of the day. It seems like every time we come up with an answer to something, there's three questions behind it. And I think that's what's facing all of us right now. And so we're trying to deal with the issues in front of us, and there'll be a time to deal with the long-term impacts at that time.
Absolutely. As an Aggie, it's always great to catch up with an LSU grad. Herb, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here and give us some of your insight during what we know is a very busy time for you.
Thank you very much, and good luck to everybody down in Aggie land. And I have a lot of great friends down there, and we look forward to very soon getting back to the athletic events where we all get together and celebrate college athletics again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Herb.